Again, if you did not join us until now, good morning. This is the Accessibility and Disability Policy webinar series for October 2018. In celebration of National Disability Employment Awareness Month, today's session is Business Partnerships for Disability Inclusion. This session is co-sponsored by Disability In and the Texas Workforce Commission. On our agenda today is, we'll start with an introduction about National Disability In and why disability inclusion is important, our Disability In affiliates and Supplier Diversity program. Next, we will cover the Disability In affiliates in Texas, business perspectives, state and Texas resources, and how you can get involved with Disability In. Now I'm going to turn it over to Lynn Kirkbride. Lynn, go ahead and take it from here.
Okay, thank you very much, Randy. I am thrilled to be here. I thank the Commission and the Texas Workforce Commission and the Governor's Council for all their great work in putting this together. We're thrilled to be a part of this. I work as the Director of Affiliate Relations for Disability In. Some of you might have known Disability In by the title USBLN, and you might know the affiliates by, for example, the Greater Houston Business Leadership Network, the Central Texas Business Leadership Network, or the North Texas Business Leadership Network. But we have just rebranded in July, so that's important. And if you want to find us on the web, you can find us under disabilityin.org. And I hope you'll go there because you'll find a lot about the programs that Disability In produces and gives rise to for our business members, many things that our affiliates leverage in your state as well. So they're great opportunities for your business to engage very, very fully in the whole area of disability inclusion. We have 160 corporate partners, and it's amazing the growth that we've seen in the past few years. And I like to say that we have an opportunity here that we've never had before with corporations coming and wanting to understand not only diversity, but disability in particular. So we are going to talk a little bit about that. But before I say anything more about that, I'd just like to tell you that we have affiliates in 30 states, and we have our affiliate network actually started before Disability In became a formalized USBLN. So we have a long-standing relationship with our affiliates. And I'm hoping, Randy, you can change my slide. Okay, so right now we are really the, our tagline is that we're the business partner for disability inclusion. And we help companies to integrate in disability initiative, explore best practices, incorporate cultural changes, and realize positive business outcomes in the workplace, in the supply chain, and the marketplace. Let's go to the next slide. So there's kind of three pillars of Disability In. One is the workforce, and everybody is probably familiar with that because we're trying to get more people employed, more people with disabilities employed in the workforce. The needle hasn't changed much in 2 decades, and I think it's starting to move now as big companies and small companies and medium-sized companies are coming to the table and wanting to understand how they can get involved with a workforce. The supply chain is the second thing, and we have a fantastic program, and I'm not going to steal Patricia Richards' thunder on this, but a supply chain of certified disability-owned businesses. We are a certifying body for disability-owned businesses, and so as companies are looking for procurement options, our supply chain program and our supplier diversity program within Disability In is really, really helpful. And then of course the marketplace, as everybody's heard, probably the accessible and the discretionary income of people with disabilities far outweighs that of the teen market and any other thing. So if for no other reason than to affect your bottom line, Disability In is the place you want to go for some help and resources on how to make that happen. Okay, I think we can go to the next slide, Randy. So why, I wanted to kind of start a little at the top. Why disability inclusion? I don't know where you as a company are in your journey around disability inclusion. Many companies have done a lot around diversity, but have not done much around disability. So I wanted to take just a minute or two and explain a few things and make a few points. So diversity is a really important thing. As we all know, our workforce is really changing. And people are staying longer, but 82% of all disabilities are acquired with age. And we really do have a very aging workforce right now. So the longer a person works for a company, the higher probability that they could become disabled. So the projection is that by mid-century, over half of our workforce will be minorities. Why disability inclusion? Because they're a source of talent. And economists are estimating that shortage of 10 to 15 million workers in the upcoming decade due to aging and shrinking workforce. 1 of every 5 working age Americans will have a disability. And those of us who are aging will have a much higher, I think it's 1 in 3 chance of acquiring a disability. Okay, next slide. So another reason to include disability in your diversity is a good public relation, because 90% of consumers felt more comfortable and favorable towards businesses that hire people with disabilities, and 87% said that they would prefer to patronize businesses that hire individuals with disabilities. I know this is really an important thing, because they not only people with disabilities not only come themselves, but they bring their family members and other people with them when they patronize something like a restaurant or go to a hotel. And the average idea is they stay longer as well. So you want to do that for that reason. And increase worker productivity. People with disabilities are just as dependable and productive as employees without disability, and had nearly identical job performance rating. Oftentimes, a person with a disability might need an accommodation, but I think you'll find that the accommodation and the time spent possibly giving them a longer training period will pay off in the end. I know I placed a woman at many years ago, 25 years ago to be exact, at Sam's Club, and after 2 weeks, they didn't think she could do the job, but I talked them into really utilizing a job coach, and by the end of it, she just celebrated last June her 25th anniversary there. So you can imagine the reduction in turnover and the cost to that company. Next slide. So this is the last slide on this, but it really is a win-win strategy, because it encourages a culture of caring and respect for diversity in the employer and a positive consumer response. I want to tell you one quick story. I did a corporate sponsored training program at Lowe's Distribution Center. And one day, we had a number of people with disabilities employed there. And one day, Matt Donaldson, the general manager, came up to me and he said, "Lynn, you didn't tell me about this other part." And I said, what was that? And he said, "You didn't tell me about how excited our people in our outreach program were to come to work every day, and how much their enthusiasm and their love for coming has infected in a positive way our corporate culture." And I said, "Well, that's not something you can tell about too easily. You just have to experience." So I think it encourages that culture of caring and respect. The other thing is compliance is real and counting is here. And with the passage of 503, the Rehab Act requires all federal contractors to hire 7% of their workforce across all job categories from persons with disabilities. So it's a real deal, and so many companies, and I think we're getting a lot of companies that are coming to us for that reason, are wondering how people where they're going to find this talent source because they want to do the right thing. So let's go to the next slide, Randy. So why we have a program at Disability Inn called the DEI, and it is a collaborative partnership between the American Association of People with Disabilities, AAPD, and Disability Inn, and it's an annual benchmarking tool for disability inclusion within American Law 200 and Fortune 1000 companies. And it not only is a benchmarking tool in some way for you to find out how you're doing with disability, it also has some great resources and helps to educate the business community on disability inclusion best policies and practice. And it guides people with disabilities in choosing businesses that are authentically committed to providing a supportive work environment. So it's got so many great things. And Becky Curran, who is the director of this program, is on the call today. And at the end, when we have Q&A, she will be available to answer any specific questions around the DEI. And I know the period to sign up to register is going on now, and I think goes through January, maybe the first week in January. Becky's going to have to clarify that for us. But your company might want to do that as a starting point on your disability inclusion journey if you haven't already, if you're a Fortune 1000 company or under. So that is a really great thing about the DEI. And anybody can look at questions for the DEI. So if you just want to get a taste of what kind of questions we'll ask, or you want to get a taste of what could our company do better, that's a great place to start. They are on our website under the DEI tab. Okay, next slide. So why should a company be involved with a local Disability Inn affiliate? Okay, now we're getting to my fun stuff, because I've been involved with the local affiliate network since 1997. I started an affiliate in Cheyenne, Wyoming. And because I believe that being involved on the local level, companies that have a national footprint, how do you bring it down to the local level? How it helps you to spread your message throughout your footprint. I think of chambers of commerces, and many companies join, the national chamber of commerce if they have a national footprint. But then on an individual level, on a local level, they join the local chambers. So what it helps a company do is have that local dialogue from a business to business perspective. So our local affiliates are for business by business. We don't tell our local affiliates what they need to educate on, what they need to train on, who they need to reach out to. We ask our local affiliates to take the pulse of that community and turn around and produce things that are going to help those companies within their location to be more inclusive in the area of disabilities. It gives them an opportunity to exchange ideas on diversity and an opportunity to share successes and challenges in the workplace, in the supply chain, and the marketplace. Next slide, Randy. So it also helps you to establish yourself as a disability-friendly business. And when we saw earlier that people prefer to go to businesses that are disability-friendly, it gives you an opportunity to establish yourself as one of those, resulting in being able to attract qualified candidates for employment, new customers, and qualified disability-owned businesses as supplier. So it really gives you a lot to establish yourself in a community as being disability friendly. And of course, it gives you an access to a new local talent pool and to suppliers with disabilities. I find in my journey with disability, my brother has been in a wheelchair. He's a quadriplegic. He's been in a chair for 45 years. And he hasn't left his community. He lives in Wisconsin. People that have a disability often, and I don't mean to stereotype, but often stay in their communities where they have a support network. So this is a local talent supply that is there and is willing to work and ready to work and wants to work. Okay, I think, I'm going to turn it over to Doug and Aaron and Rick, and they're going to talk specifically about the Texas affiliates of Disability Inn. So thank you for your time. And if you want to find out more about the local affiliates in other places that your company might have a presence, you can find me at Disability In, or you can email me at lynn@disabilityin.org. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Lynn. Randy, if you want to go ahead to the next slide. So this is the affiliate markets. So as you can see on the screen, the Houston market is the greater Houston area, which is basically, it covers the same territory as the Texas Workforce Commission, which spans as far north as up in the Huntsville area, and as far west as Brenham, and as far east as Baytown, going down to the Galveston area. So it's a pretty large territory as far as the populace goes. The Central Texas area covers the greater Austin area, north into Temple, and south into San Antonio. And then North Texas is the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, which is a large local area, but all the way from on to the west, on the outskirts of Fort Worth, all the way to the east, going towards Tyler and the Dallas area. Randy, if you can go to the next slide, please. So for the Greater Houston area, disability in Greater Houston, the board members consist of myself. I'm the chair. I work for a company called StaffMart, Recruit Holdings out of Japan. Cheryl Guido is the vice chair, and she is with the Texas Workforce Commission with the blind division. And Cheryl and I are the two that came up with the idea of getting an affiliate chapter here in the state of Texas. At the time, there wasn't one. And we saw a need. There was a void that we needed to fill. So we started the chapter here in the Greater Houston area. We brought on board Beth Painter. She is the secretary, and she is with Whataburger. And Chris Schumard, he's our treasurer, and he's with Shell Oil Company. So these are just a few of the events. We put on events throughout the year, but our primary events are, we have 2 hiring/employer seminars annually. Usually it's the first half of the year and then the back half of the year. We typically will have somewhere between 50 to about 100 employers, and we've gotten anywhere up to probably 500-600 people at our job fair that have been very successful in being able to connect those individuals with disabilities with employers that are disability friendly or are looking for great talent. We also have what we call Paving the Pathways. It's a summer internship program where we work with about 5 or 6 different companies each year, and we match them up with a group of individuals that have disabilities, and they take them through an internship. And it can be anything from a physical to a mental disability. Their coaches take them through a project, and once they finish up what that presentation could look like, they present it in front of a panel of judges, and then from that we vote on who the winner is, and then we help them pay for their trip to the Disability in National Conference each year. White Cane Day, probably a lot of y'all on the phone or on the webinar today have participated in the White Cane Day. We're active with that with the TWC. That was, as a matter of fact, that was just a couple of weeks ago, which is always a great amount of success for us. And then if you're interested in the Greater Houston Disability In, you can contact myself at doug.carr, and that's with a K, at staffmart.com, and then our P.O. Box address if you wanted to mail something to us. So Randy, I believe, is it Aaron next?
Yep. Thanks, Doug.
You're welcome.
Hello, everyone. My name is Aaron Bangor. I'm chair of Disability in Central Texas. I'm giving myself a little high five for remembering to say Disability in Central Texas and not Central Texas BLN. It's a habit that's taken a little bit of breaking, but the mission of what we do at the affiliate level as well as the national level really has not changed, and Lynn talked about those goals. In our affiliate, we have quite the breadth and depth of companies involved, and we're very proud of the different perspectives that we have represented in our organization. So I'm with AT&T. We also have a member that's a small business owner at the Intermedia Group, technology companies like Dell and IBM involved, education training services. Microassist has been a great partner for us. We've got employment service, a service provider, Peak Performers, that's been involved, healthcare, Baylor Scott & White, and TMF. The financial sector, Amplify Credit Union, USAA, and logistics and supply, McLean Company up in Temple. So it really shows kind of the diversity of applications for disability inclusion. And what we really stress is that no matter where you are in the disability inclusion journey, probably all have something to share, whether it's something that you've done well or a lesson learned the hard way that would be helpful for others. But we also have a lot to learn from each other, no matter where you think that company is on its journey. There's still a lot to cover. Randy, next slide. Just a couple events to highlight some of the things we've done. So we've done some in-person events, this panel discussion on hiring and recruiting people with disabilities. We had several different employers from technology and hospitality and financial and industries, just to talk about the benefits and strategies for hiring and recruiting people with disabilities. The Governor's Committee, Executive Director Ron Lucy did a great presentation on communicating with people with disabilities in the workplace, so good foundational topic. And we've done a couple webinars in partnership with the Employer Assistance and Resource Network on Disability Inclusion, EARN. They've been great partners for us, and we've done a couple webinars with them on some different topics, ranging across the board from very straightforward and kind of universal stuff on accommodations all the way up through building an inclusive culture, intersectionality, mentoring, and so forth. So, a lot of variety and interest in trying to appeal to the Central Texas community, the business community, and happy for the participation we've had to date, and would love some more. So with that, I'll turn it over to Rick for North Texas.
Great. Thank you, Aaron. So good morning, everyone. My name is Rick Wilson. I am the chair of the North Texas affiliate for Disability In. And like Aaron, my day job is with AT&T. I'm a director within our diversity and inclusion corporate team. But I really just wanted to build upon some of what you heard already from Lynn, Aaron, and Doug. And one of the questions, as the newest affiliate here in North Texas, we were often asked is why should we be involved? And really my answer has consistently been local, 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 because we have a lot of businesses here in North Texas that are involved with disability and at the national level. However, bringing that conversation to the local level and then harnessing the power of the businesses, both large and small within your market, really can't be understated as you start to work with the disability community, whether it's for employment or supplier diversity. So as I stated, I'm the chair of the local affiliate. We were just formed in the first quarter of this year, and we have close to 40 different North Texas businesses that have already engaged and joined our membership ranks. So I want to just talk real briefly a little bit about some of the events that we've hosted here in North Texas. We do host events on a quarterly basis, and what we do is move those around the Metroplex. Knowing how large it is and knowing how diverse our businesses are within this market, we try to rotate those sessions, whether it be at American Airlines, here at AT&T. Just last week, we were at the Gaylord Texan, which is a large Marriott property right near DFW Airport. And some of the topics that we've covered since we've been in place is really around, obviously, connecting employers with the disability talent. Some of those topics included connecting employers with some of the leading North Texas colleges from SMU, Texas Tech, UNT, and UTD, and really hosting a panel where their student disability service centers can connect with employers and kind of talking about a wide range of topics from self-ID to more complex topics of really getting students engaged with the employers as they come on campus. We've also connected our employers with leading service providers, and we've done that in a couple different ways. One of them was in celebration of Autism Awareness Month. We had 2 presentations from a service provider here in North Texas, as well as a large employer that's also actively involved, EY, here in North Texas. And then also our last one that we hosted, the last topic I'll mention is around service animals in the workplace. And we really brought in one of the leading service animal providers here in North Texas to talk about how they place animals with individuals who have the needs, and then of course navigating all of those job accommodation issues, which can be sometimes tricky depending on the size of the business or the industry that you're in. If you are interested in joining the North Texas affiliate, please reach out to our membership chair. Her name is Kim Cummings, and her email address is provided within the materials that are going to be following this webinar. So Randy, if you'd like to go to the next slide, we'll move on. Thank you. So what we'd like to do next is share business perspectives. And I think as you've heard from several of us already, we come from different industries representing the different affiliates across the state of Texas. So we're going to spend just a few minutes talking about that and the value of having people with disabilities within our workforce, supply chain, and marketplace. Randy, you can go to the next slide, and Doug, I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you. Yeah, so I believe Lynn's kind of touched on a little bit of this when she did the introduction, but I believe we're all in markets right now that have a pretty tight labor market. And whoever you're working for, or if you or you're members of our affiliates, they're all talking about how difficult it is to find good talent right now. So when we ask why not join an affiliate? Well, one of the reasons to join an affiliate is to get connected with the disability community, because there is some great talent out there. We tend to say that they're not disabled, it's what are their abilities. If you look beyond what you see in front of you, there are a lot of individuals with some great talent and great skills that they can provide and bring value to your company. And we've been able to do that through the internships, through the connections at our job fairs. So it's a good reason to get connected to that disability community. Employers, as far as understanding old myths, I think we're doing a pretty good job of dispelling a lot of those myths. You know, it's if I hire somebody with a disability, my insurance rate's going to go up. Is there going to be higher absenteeism? Are they going to distract from the other employees at my company? Those are all myths. And you know, kind of touching on what Lynn said in the very beginning, is what you tend to find with the disability community is they do stay within their community, and their tenure is longer than the average employee. So there's a lot of great reasons to reach out and connect with the disability community. Third point on here is many current employees are becoming disabled as a workforce has aged. I right now have my reading glasses on. I used to have 20/20 vision. That is no longer the case. I can share a short story. Prior to working where I am now, I had an unbelievable employee that was managing one of my markets. And over time, she was losing her vision. And she felt less and less in control of what she was able to do. And her self-awareness started kicking in, and realizing that she wasn't as effective as she used to be. And she was contemplating retiring. And when we sat down and talked about it, it was as simple as getting her a screen that magnified what she was looking at, that kind of gave back her what she believed her self-worth was. And she worked for probably, I think, another 8 or 9 years after that. So, and she provided great value to our company. So sometimes it's just sitting down and speaking with an individual. We have a lot of baby boomers in the workforce right now, and it's key to understand that they're all getting a little bit older. I'm one of them. And things start happening to our bodies. And, you know, and part of that sometimes, unfortunately, is we become disabled. And we need those modifications in order to continue to work. Rick is going to take you through the next 3 bullet points.
Yeah, thank you, Doug. I appreciate it. So just a few things that I would share. In terms of hiring people with disabilities, I think kind of one of the underlying messages that we want to make sure that everyone knows is that it really is good for business. So regardless of the size of your business, large, small, or medium, it really does have some real economic benefit to involve people with disabilities within either your supply chain or your workforce. just real quickly, I wanted to mention yesterday, because we all know that it's National Disability Employment Awareness Month. Just yesterday, Disability In released what I'll consider really a groundbreaking study, specifically around some of the metrics and the quantification of increasing disability employment within your workforce and what that means for a business. So if you haven't checked it out, just do a quick Google search for Disability In, and that was released in partnership with Accenture as well as AAPD, which is the American Association of People with Disabilities. So the bottom line is it's good for business. The other thing that I would say too is it really can help your business, we heard earlier, connect to customers. So when you think about the diversity of the customers, regardless of what type of an industry that you're in, that you're serving, having people with disabilities within that workforce, one, makes the experience of your product or service, I hate to say more relatable, but it really creates that connection so that people with disabilities value your business and again, can have greater return on investment in the long run. Randy, if you'd take us to the next slide.
Thanks, Rick. We'll go back one, please, Randy. So Doug and Rick just talked about sort of the workforce part. Remember, Lynn talked about workforce and supplier diversity and marketplace. And I wanted to, marketplace spans so much, I wanted to kind of focus on one specific concept, and that is around the technology being used in workplaces. So technology is a great enabler, but it can be a disabler. Just adding technology to something does not necessarily automatically make it more accessible for employees with disabilities, or for that matter, for your customers. And I want to kind of give you an idea of how these barriers might come up unwittingly. So unlike a building where steps or a ramp are obvious, that is inaccessibility or accessibility, an untrained eye can't easily tell if a website or a mobile app or software used by employees is accessible. Also, unlike an ergonomic chair, a sit-stand desk, or time off, software systems are not specific to an employee. So if an employee needs screen magnification, to use Doug's example, you're not going to buy screen magnification for every employee. That can be done as an individual accommodation. But software systems or mobile apps or your intranet, doesn't make sense to create a separate version of your corporate intranet just for a screen reader user or a screen magnifier user, or employees that use other types of assistive technologies. And so as we're moving from physical spaces and the physical tools to more and more that software and technology is mediating how we do our work, this making a individual accommodation may not always be the most practical way to do things. And this really requires us to think more deeply about how do we build our intranet sites? How do we, when we procure from a vendor, perhaps a benefits enrollment platform or a time card system and these types of things, do you have a process in place? Are you thinking about how to build accessibility into those tools from the beginning so that they are generally accessible to everybody up front, rather than to figure out how do we, after the fact, how do we make a one-off accommodation for the employees in the company that use assistive technology. Now, so those are some of the pitfalls that we're running into as technology enters the workplace more and more. On the opportunity side, a couple of quotes that I think are really important that set the stage here. So this idea Mark Andreessen came up with several years ago, that software is eating the world, meaning that software more and more is rapidly changing and mediating so many of not only the communications, but how we do work. But also their quote, "There's nothing inherently inaccessible about zeros and ones that computers speak." That was by Jonathan Lazar's, a professor at Towson State University. The idea is, unlike the physical world where the laws of physics are pretty immutable, when it comes to technology, we're in control of how that technology is built on those zeros and ones. And so we are in control about whether or not we create barriers or create opportunities using technologies. The mobile operating systems, iOS, Android, whatever your particular flavor is, have numerous built-in assistive technologies, as well as certainly a laptop or a personal computer, but also tablets and so forth. There's assistive technologies that are widely available for individuals to use. There are well-defined standards for how to make software, particularly websites, accessible. This is not some mystical art that only known to a few. The information is out there. But do companies have the skills already on their staffs? And maybe more importantly, do they have the organizational commitment to building full inclusion through accessible technology? And that's the trick, and that's something that the Disability In broadly and the affiliates can help with. So Raina, go to that next slide, please. It would take weeks and weeks of webinar to cover how to make various technologies accessible. I did want to leave you with at least a high-level view of some things to think about as you are working through your own journey on making your technology used by employees accessible. So for websites, there are, as I said, there are established standards. What you probably want to look at is something called the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines 2.0 level AA. Emails, most emails these days are written in HTML, and so have all the same basic standards as websites. Also make sure to use plain language, so not that highfalutin, senior and college level. The simpler you make it, the better it is for everybody. PDF documents, there are some well-known and available techniques there, particularly Adobe, who makes the Acrobat printer and reader and so forth, has some good guidelines. Videos focus on captioning, and if there's inherently visual content in those videos, make sure that there's an alternative for individuals that have visual disabilities, such as a description or voiceover, those sorts of things. Don't forget your town hall and your business meetings inside. So think about captioning cart like we've got here today, accessible meeting materials. If you're in a big room, make sure you're using microphones. So not just people that may be remote can hear, but also individuals that are experiencing some mild hearing loss or moderate hearing loss can follow along. Apps, as I mentioned, iOS, Android, Windows all have accessibility guidelines for those platforms. And the interactive voice response systems, the automated phone systems, there's some tips here in terms of making sure that if you've, I think first and foremost, that you have touch tone input, but also have speech input, make sure you've got both. So if somebody has a speech disability or just has laryngitis that day, can still use it. So just the tip of the iceberg here, but I wanted to give you a sense that there is a lot of resources out there on how to make the internal systems accessible. It's a matter of knowing where they are and having good friends through that journey, and Disability In is certainly one of the places to do that. So with that, I'll turn it over to Patricia to talk about supplier diversity.
Thank you so much, Aaron. It's so good to be with you all today. Thank you for being on the call. I'm going to share with you some information on supplier diversity, which is part of trying to ensure that disability-owned businesses are included in the supply chain. So on the first slide, the Disability In Supplier Diversity Program is a flagship program that offers corporations and government agencies a reliable source for identifying potential suppliers that are certified by us as being disability-owned, veterans with disabilities, what we call VDOBs, and service-disabled veteran-owned businesses, or SDVDOBs. Through our Supplier Diversity Program, corporate partners have access to a growing pool of qualified, certified suppliers nationwide to meet their needs. So we not only certify disability-owned businesses, but we also do more. We provide business development tools, information, and link them to business decision makers and influencers within the corporations and agencies. I will say that the Supplier Diversity program was started in 2010 at the request of two of our corporate partners at the time, who wanted to ensure that there were ways to access disability-owned businesses and that we could be a third-party agency to identify and certify these suppliers. We have about 90 plus corporate partners that are involved in our supplier diversity efforts at this time. At the end of the day, it's really about self-employment, the ability of entrepreneurs with disabilities to access the supply chain and have a chance to grow businesses and support themselves and support the community. Next slide. So why include disability-owned businesses? For the same reasons that corporations have found it important to include other diverse supplier groups. Because disability-owned businesses can strengthen the supply chains, they bring innovation, they bring quality products and services, they bring an attention to detail, and they bring added flexibility to the supply chain. From customer compliance perspective, many of the top corporations, Fortune 1,500 corporations like IBM, Sodexo, Marriott, Wells Fargo, expect their suppliers to also utilize disability-owned businesses. Disability-owned businesses have great buying power, very brand loyal, and having disability suppliers identified as such in your companies can help you retain persons with disabilities in your workforce, because they want to see a corporation walk the talk. Next slide. Whenever I do presentations on our supplier diversity programs, I think it's really important to focus on and really bring to life the suppliers that we're working with and that we're supporting, and that can add so much in the supply chain. So I wanted to share with you the photos of two of suppliers. One recently certified, DECA Consulting, which is a IT staffing company located right here in Houston, Texas, really Sugarland, Texas. And prove them wrong. Nancy Schubert is the owner of this company. She focuses on disability awareness, professional development. She's written 2 books, and created 1 DVD, and she's a motivational speaker, a very powerful person. She's located in Austin, Texas, and I've had the pleasure to meet her as well. I mentioned 2 other suppliers, one located in Dallas, Texas. Well, both of them located in Dallas, Texas, would be Artur Taylor Distribution, Inc., and Paul Gittemeyer, owner of TikTok. So we're making inroads, and we're growing the number of disability suppliers connected to our corporate communities, and we need your help to do so. Next slide. I've already mentioned what I hope are some very positive reasons why you should think about including disability suppliers as part of your supply chain. And I'm going to kind of paraphrase the bullets that are here, and I know these slides will go out to you at your request. But it's very important, I think, as a member of the community, for you to be recognized as a champion of diversity. And certainly there's no better way than ensuring that disability suppliers are included in your supply chain. Also having access to our database of disability suppliers, so there's certainly ways that you can identify who we have in the system, but we also need your help to identify those that are in your community. Again, I've mentioned that disability suppliers, our DOBIes, our SDV DOBIes, offer innovation and value-driven products and services. And it's also an opportunity for you, those of you that have supplier diversity programs, to learn from others and to share best practices with other corporations and learn what they're doing to advance it. And certainly participating in the DEI, one of our foremost tools on evaluating how well you're doing at disability inclusion, is one way of advancing that as a best practice. Certainly, you'll have opportunities to participate in Disability in Supplier Diversity events, and we do many, many things to help you, to bring you face-to-face with our certified suppliers. So again, those are just some of the reasons why it's important to be active either nationally or locally with our affiliates in supplier diversity efforts. And I'd like to just close by saying, you know, it's really about self-employment. It's about accessing supplier talent. And we'd love to share more with you about this. If you have any questions, you can certainly ask them at the end of the session or contact me at patricia@disabilityin.org. And with that, I'll turn it over to Melinda. Oh, excuse me, one more slide. Again, just to paraphrase and summarize, what are the things that you could do specifically around disability inclusion to make sure that there are policies and practices that show commitment to disability-owned businesses, so that when they go on your websites or your portals that they see that called out specifically. I mentioned joining forces with us nationally and locally. And then recognize those that are doing it well. Recognize those suppliers, the leaders that are actually helping advance disability inclusion and supplier disability inclusion. Again, with that, I'll hand off to Melinda.
I know Melinda is connected, but we can't hear you, Melinda. Give us 1 second.
Wow, that's pretty good. Can you guys hear me now?
Yes, so we're getting feedback, Melinda.
Okay, but you can hear me now?
Yes, yes.
Awesome. Okay, good. Technology has marveled working for us now. I apologize for that, everyone. Thanks for your patience. You guys have heard a lot of information right now about a lot of resources available from businesses. Disability In is a great organization. We at the Texas Workforce Commission love working with them because there's no one better to share about their experiences in working with people with disabilities than businesses themselves. So I'm here just to kind of sum things up a little and share with you what the state vocational rehab program, how we work in partnership with Disability In, and also help you as businesses. I've seen a couple questions around how to get individuals to apply for your jobs that have disabilities. So hopefully at the end of this, you'll have that information. So to kind of explain who we are, our agency has moved over the last couple of years. And so I saw someone referring to us as DARS in one of the questions as well. And yes, that's who we used to be. Back in a few years ago, we moved over to the Texas Workforce Commission. And so vocational rehabilitation is part of the Texas Workforce Solutions branding and family. So Texas Workforce Solutions has a few partners, as you can see in the slide: the Texas Workforce Commission, the 28 local workforce development board areas, and our service providers and partners in the areas, Disability In being one of them, obviously. So together, all of those organizations are labeled and are seen as Texas Workforce Solutions, and vocational rehabilitations is part of the Workforce Solutions family. Next slide, please, Randy. So who we serve two customers, really. The individuals with disabilities who are looking to gain training or work experience or find employment, as well as the business community, as you've heard from many of the businesses today. So our goal is building partnerships and relationships that kind of bring those two together. So by helping the individual with a disability get the training and skills they need to be a qualified applicant, we then can help the businesses meet their bottom line by hiring qualified applicants and adding to their labor force. So it's really a win-win opportunity on both sides, bringing those two together. Next slide, please. So the vocational rehabilitation services, again, with the two customers, we have services to employers and services to the job seeker. So the disability awareness, education that we offer businesses, worksite analysis, hiring and retention assistance, some of the accommodations that Erin mentioned, VR can help make those assessments and provide those services to eligible individuals. And again, retaining individuals. As you heard earlier, the aging workforce is certainly becoming part of the minority of individuals with various barriers to their employment. And so our agency certainly wants to help you retain those individuals in any way possible. So those services and more provided to our employers. And our job seekers, it's really about career guidance and counseling. So are we really helping our customers gain the labor market awareness that they have for their community so that they are applying for and getting training in the areas where employment can actually be obtained. Various services, they're very individually based on the individual's needs, interests, and their disability. So those services vary a great deal. Next slide, please, Randy. So in general, our goal is just to simply improve employment opportunities for qualified individuals with disabilities by working in partnership with the local workforce boards and employers. And so we know that it takes a lot of us. It takes all of the services and organizations that you've been hearing from today to really work together to either get that job seeker to the right employment opportunity or help that business gain the qualified applicants that they need. And that is generally, I'm going to sum up to keep us on time, what the vocational rehab services are at the state level. And just to say to that really quick too, the services that we offer are free services to businesses and to the job seekers. Individuals can apply for our services. Businesses can reach out to us. We have a network of business relations coordinators that work all over the state. And at the end of the slide, you have our email address. I'm happy to connect you to any of those individuals at the local level. Thank you.
Okay, then I guess we're ready for questions. We have a few that you may have already addressed in the Q&A box. I'm going to read Jenny Voigt's. We've been trying to reach out to groups that focus on serving individuals with disabilities to try and make our jobs visible to those individuals, but we don't seem to be having much luck. We just don't seem to get many individuals with disabilities applying for our roles. Are there any suggestions for how to really engage the community and even get them into our selection process to be considered? Who wants to take that one?
So this is Rick. I'll go ahead and take a stab at that. And I think it's probably in 3 minutes, I'm not sure I can answer that, but I do think based on my experience and even before, I'm going to put on my real job hat at AT&T, having been in the recruiting space. One of the things that we've had success with, especially through the affiliate and through work, is kind of getting underneath that. So I'm not sure for the person that asked the question, I think it really would require some dialogue back with the service provider or the community, whoever that liaison is from the organization, to understand why. Is it a mismatch? Is it something about maybe your culture? So much of recruiting, of course, is marketing. And so making sure that regardless of the candidate, whether it's for someone with a disability or a person of color, et cetera, it really needs to be a compelling case to get them to to basically click apply and start, the process. So I'd kind of probably go back, be happy to, have some additional dialogue. If that person that asked that question would like to reach out to our affiliate, we'd be happy to share. 'Cause that's the type of things that we talk about as an affiliate chapter, and really, getting underneath that and supporting one another to share those best practices.
How do you, maybe, I don't know, Rick or Doug or Aaron may be able to answer this one. How do you start a local disability in chapter? And are there fees involved to fund it, or how does it work?
Talk to Lynn.
I was just going to say, that's a Lynn Kirkbride.
I just turned my my microphone off of mute because you start with me, but I'll tell you, Greater Houston was the first affiliate in Texas, and they very much helped both Central Texas and North Texas. But any of those three affiliates will also, North Texas being the most recent affiliate to come on board, can talk to you about the process. We do have a process. It takes, it's a two-step process with starting with a letter of intent and starting with businesses to 6 businesses to kind of, circle the wagons, come together, say they're going to be part of a development team, and go from there. The Texas affiliates are very business-led and have had great experience with that. So if you're interested in talking further about that, I'd love to get on a call with you. I'd love to send you information, and I would be great. I'd be happy to do that. I don't know, Rick, you guys just went through this, so do you want to make any comments?
No, I think you captured it well, Lynn. I think it's as long as there's the interest from the business community, I think that was for us the best starting point. But then, of course, having someone that will take lead. And so since they're all, for the most part, the affiliate network is volunteer run or driven, until you maybe get to a status down the road where you have paid staff. It's just really someone taking that initiative, or companies taking initiative, individuals, and driving it forward.
I think one of the interesting things about your affiliate, Rick, was that you had several companies that were really able to share that load and do that heavy lift. Because there is some, I'm not going to lie, there are some things that you're going to have to do to make it worthwhile. But when you can hear all 3 of our affiliates in Texas talking about how helpful it's been to their companies, it's been a good thing. So thank you for the question, and I'm more than willing to talk further.
Thanks, Lynn. How do you become we have 2 questions, kind of 2 different focuses here. How do you become a certified supplier? And then I think the other one is more related to vocational rehab, and how do you get a workplace analysis done? So let's take the first one first.
Okay, this is Patricia. Thank you for that question. So there is a process. We call it an assurance process, where the applicant goes online. We have a virtual system. They go online, complete the application, and upload qualifying documents and business documents. The qualifying documents that we require would be a physician's form in many cases that attest to the disability and is signed off on by the person's physician. For service-disabled veterans, we require DD 214, which are discharge papers, and the disability letter, ratings letter that's issued by the VA. The business documents would be a variety of things like tax returns, I'm totally went blank. Sorry about that. tax returns, and other business documents to help us determine the ownership, management, and control. So what I should have said is what we require is at least 51%, can be more, of course, 51% ownership, management, and control by the person with disability. We have certified when there's when there's 2 individuals with disabilities, so that certainly is fine, or 2 or more, but what we're looking for is at least 51% by person or persons with disabilities for one company. There is a fee of $300 for 2-year certification. Our processing takes place with the National Certification Committee, and it takes anywhere from 30 to 90 days for the total process to be complete. I'll turn it back to you.
All right, thanks. Now, Melinda, can you answer the other one about how to get a workplace analysis, a work site analysis?
Worksite analysis, yeah, sure can. So what I would suggest is if you will email me at the website, the email address provided via our business relations at twc.state.tx.us, and I think, Randy, it's on the slides. Yeah, in the beginning, go back, there you go. I will get you in touch with the local people in your area. Just let me know. I think that was the New Braunfels area, if that's the same question I'm thinking of. I'd be happy to connect you with somebody to talk with.
Okay, very good.
Randy, this is Lynn. If anybody has any questions, Becky, are you on the phone? I don't know if you have a minute to just say anything about the DEI.
We did have a question related to DEI. What are the eligibility requirements for a business to participate in the DEI? Is there a cost? But I don't see Becky on as a presenter. And if she's on as a participant, there's no way her.
Okay. Well,
let me, Patricia, I think I can answer that.
Go ahead.
There is a cost, and I'm going to give you Becky's email address so that you can contact her for the cost if you're not a corporate partner of Disability In. There is a cost. If you are a corporate partner, there is no cost. Becky's email is simply becky@disabilityin.org. And in terms of that decision of taking it, certainly it's an opportunity to find out kind of where you stand in different areas of your company. There is no basic or standing area of performance that you have to make the decision to take the DEI. Again, it is a benchmarking tool that will help you access it. If you take the DEI, you will not, those that take the DEI, it's anonymous. Only those scoring 80 and above are published. So there's the opportunity to really, again, assess where your company is without it being punitive. Hopefully that helps.
Okay. As a volunteer of a committee for persons with disabilities, we would like to monitor or establish how many people with an organization employ people with disabilities. It has not been successful because feedback from managers states persons with disabilities do not reveal their problems. How may we get around this to better measure success?
So is the question on volunteer committee for persons with disabilities? I'm sorry, this is Aaron speaking.
Yes.
Is this a group that's outside the businesses? I mean, I guess I'll kind of try to at least start answering it both ways. So if you're outside organization, if you're like on a mayor's committee on persons with disabilities, then yeah, that will be difficult, and it's difficult for sort of the second part of the answer, which is this is a question that comes up a lot in Disability In discussions, which is self-disclosure. That is, will employees voluntarily identify as having a disability? And that has been a challenge, and I know we've talked about it in the Central Texas affiliate on how to do that. We've talked about at the national level. Rick, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about self-ID campaign and some of the opportunities and pitfalls that are there.
Well, sure. Happy to. So yeah, I think one of the things that, you know, we've talked about at the affiliate level, but also just in general, is, you know, I think there's a distinction obviously between someone's self-disclosure as it relates to an accommodation versus voluntarily self-IDing, right? Because, you know, individuals may have a disability, but don't need an accommodation, right? They just may not need one to perform the essential functions of their job. And so I do think that earlier I mentioned kind of just like the culture of your organization, and there's so many variables. And I would say that there are some organizations that do really well at this, and then there's others that, you know, I'll just say it's a journey, because there's varying levels of individuals wanting to self-ID. And that's not only, you know, it's not unique to employers, it's also on college campuses, as I mentioned earlier. So it's that whole issue. I think we could probably do a whole webinar, and I know that Disability In, if I'm not mistaken, has a webinar on self-ID coming up, I believe in December. Maybe Lynn or Patricia could potentially validate that, but there are resources out there, and you know, being involved with the affiliate, we kind of tackle those type of issues.
All right, thank you, Rick. Melinda, we have a question also about how many individuals with disabilities does TWC work with?
Wow, that's a loaded question. Last year, I think our number of individuals that we had on a plan for employment, what we call an IPE, was over 75,000 individuals. We had successful employment outcomes of over 13,000 last year. So there's a lot of individuals, and we certainly are growing and getting the word out more about our services available to businesses and individuals with disabilities.
All right, we have about 5 more minutes, so I think we can take maybe 2 more questions. I'm opening up an activity center for special needs adults in New Braunfels, Texas. It will cover Comal, Guadalupe, and Hayes counties. Who do I get in touch with Texas Workforce to come in and help us train our people and find a job?
Again, this is Melinda, and I would say email me at the VR Business Relations at twc.state.tx.us, and I will connect you with our business relations coordinator for that area.
And last question for this morning, if there's any we did not get to, I'll try to get those answered and to you by email. This is in reference to compliance or non-discrimination. If an employee becomes disabled and requires modification in the workplace, such as wheelchair access, etc., what position does the employer assume? I'm not sure who's might feel qualified to answer that.
This is Aaron. I'll at least go, but I'll preface it with I'm not an attorney, and I don't play one on webinars. But if somebody acquires a disability at their workplace, then the ADA Title I protections for non-discrimination would still apply to them. So that employee would, if they need an accommodation to perform the essential job functions, would need to reach out to their manager or however that organization handles the accommodations process, and have that interactive dialogue on that there's a specific medical need for an accommodation, what that accommodation is, and find a way to still perform those essential job functions. Maybe it's in a different way, and that's gonna, the exact process will vary by organization, but that's essentially what happens. And yeah, if somebody acquires a disability, that it's not only at the hiring process that an employer needs to think about supporting people with disabilities in the workplace, but throughout their career, as Doug was talking about earlier, there's certainly plenty of cases where people are acquiring their disabilities either due to accident while they're, even if it's not on the job, but also as they age, they may acquire a disability that can be accommodated, and that's the employer's responsibility to engage in that interactive dialogue.
And that's just another tag for vocational rehabilitation under Workforce Commission, because that's one of the things that I've seen them do is come in and assist individuals with acquired disabilities to help them be able to maintain that employment. We don't want to lose the good people we've got, right? Well, I want to thank everyone for attending Business Partnerships for Disability Inclusion today. I'd like to thank Texas Closed Captioning for the real-time captioning services, Disability In, Disability In Affiliates, and Texas Workforce Commission for partnering with us today for this session. This concludes our session. Have a great day.